I'm Kelly Mitchell, and this is Breve TV Uncorked. Women on wine, business, and evolution, sharing rich conversation to enlighten, challenge, and inspire the busiest people on earth. Tonight, episode 79, Keeping Your Goals Alive, How to Stay Focused After the Sizzle Subsides. Joining me today is my partner in wine, Debra Trapin. Welcome to the show, Debra. It's delicious to have you back.
Thank you, darling. Always wonderful to see you.
Always wonderful to see you as well. And what is in your glass today, my friend?
Well, we recently went to a, release party, and they had this delicious little surprise in the library for us.
Ooh.
It is a 2003 Merlot.
Oh my goodness, that's exciting.
It is exciting because it is one of those wines that when you go to your pickup release party, you actually get to drink right when you get home. Most of the time they're like, lay it down for 2 to 5 years, blah, blah, blah. It was like, they were like, sister, drink it. So it is amazing. It is dark chocolate and cherry and, oh, delicious. I'm saving a bottle for when we're together.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm super excited about that wine and the fact that it's waited 11 years for you.
Indeed. Indeed. It's actually waited 12.
Oh my goodness. Well, that sounds wonderful.
Yes.
So today in my glass, and I do have my glass,
Woo.
I actually have something that I feel is pretty timely because we're getting really close to the release of 50 Shades of Grey.
Lord.
And this is actually 50 Shades of Grey wine. Now, this wine is the red Satin, and it's in honor of the much anticipated movie, right, of the same name, which launches relatively soon, or the launch will be shortly after this airs. The quote on the cork, You.Are.Mine, kind of saucy. So this is from the Deep Valley Cellars of Ukiah, California, and 50shadesofwine.com. They're on Twitter at 50shadesofwine. Mr. Gray, we'll see you now, darlings. So cheers to you, my friend. I'm so excited about this show. I'm going to take a sip as a toast to launch. And our word for the show today is goals.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. So if we say goals more than once in a sentence, I'm going to ask you to refrain from drinking 3 times in that sentence because we want you to still be standing and be cognizant of what we've shared, as well as we would like to be cognizant of what we're sharing. But in this episode, we are tackling the subject of goals. The novelty of the shiny new year has worn off. You are in the real world work mode, and it's time to check yourself. Check yourself. Where are you in the process? Are you headed for success, or have your goals been tucked away and forgotten? We're checking in with you to see if you're on or off track, and we're here to give you a boost and help you along the way. So I'd love to jump into the goals session, but before I do that, we begin with a quote. One of the lessons that I grew up with was to always stay true to yourself and never let what somebody else says distract you from your goals. And so when I hear about negative and false attacks, I really don't invest any energy in them because I know who I am. That's from Michelle Obama.
Oh, I know.
Don't you love that?
Yeah, I love that. Preach it, sister. That was a great quote.
Woohoo! Okay, so let's jump into it because there's so much to tackle in here, and I had some surprising revelations, and maybe I should share that just to kind of set the landscape because I don't want people to get too overwhelmed, and that's one of the things we often do with goals is, I want to conquer the world. Okay, so how do we break that down into bite-sized pieces, right? That's just crazy. It's like we're setting ourselves up for failure. So I think goals provide a lot of opportunity, but if they're not done right, it's a waste of time. And then if you're not following up, it's even more of a waste of time. So a lot of it has to do with who's setting the goals and laying the groundwork you have to be committed, and it has to match up with your values. So, and I know, Deb, that you're going to take a deep dive on first the big picture. So let's talk about that for a second. What is, I mean, the big picture, I said I want to conquer the world. Is that realistic? Is that something that people should be thinking about?
Well, I mean, having an ultimate why behind your goal of saying, I want to conquer the world, that's fine. However, that's like a result of what you're going to do. And so your goals are what are actionable that you can actually do. And I think that's a really important step, is to look at what you're saying is the thing you want to conquer this year, and find out, like, what is it about? Like, what is it that stirred you to put that on your list? Because in particular, when we go through goal setting seasons, and it's usually the beginning of a quarter or the beginning of a year, we get all fired up about it. And by the end, we've kind of lost ourselves. We've gotten so distracted by just the everyday, the everyday. And so it's just coming back to reminding yourself, have you forgotten what it's about? If your ultimate is conquering the world, remember, just slow down and say, what's the one thing I can do today that's going to help that big picture come to fruition?
And you know, seeing the stats on some of the goal setting that we do as human beings, I don't know exactly what they are for success, but I know one of the #1 goals we set is weight loss. What's wrong with that?
Oh, well, you know, I've preached about this in a couple of blog posts, and I'll share them in the streams, because whenever you say you want to lose something, you're already setting a negative goal for yourself. And I completely believe in setting positive goals and really working towards, instead of saying that you want to lose weight, that the reason you're doing it is because you want a healthier lifestyle. You want to be able to, you know, run with your husband, or chase your grandchildren, or push your child in a swing without losing your breath. Or it could be something, you know, as personal as, I'm going on a cruise and I want to rock myself by the pool. I don't want to be worried. But giving yourself, like, framing it in a positive way, like, what joy are you going to get from it, is such a better way to set that kind of goal. And you're right. I mean, it's insane how many people have that on their goal list, and how many people actually have knocked it off their goals within the first 4 to 6 weeks of the year, right? The gyms were packed, all of those things, and it's the same thing every single year, because people are setting unrealistic expectations on themselves. And they're really not, it's not really part of their big picture. They're really not being truthful. They would rather drink those 2 glasses of wine than lose the 10 pounds. And you know what? Whatever. Like, embrace the 10 pounds. The goal of 10 pounds. Woo!
Woo!
I love it.
Okay, so, and I think the other thing is, too, is we're often setting, because a lot of us are overachievers, we're setting too many goals.
Yeah.
And so what's wrong with that?
Well, I mean, our brain doesn't, I know that you've done some studies on the psychology of all of this stuff, but you know what, I think it's hard for our brains to focus on too many things. We've already talked about multitasking many times in our lives. Should we do it? Should we not? We all know we shouldn't. What was it that we talked about? Like, it's worse than being stoned. Your brain on multitasking is worse than being stoned.
It is. It is. Well, we actually we're reformatting our connections in our brain like we're reformatting a drive. So if we're multitasking and we're over multitasking, what happens to our brains is it stops being able to figure out where that information needs to go so it can access it the next time. And so it takes us longer to do everything. Isn't that scary?
It is scary. And so, you know,
Stop reformatting your drives.
I don't want to reformat my drive, at least not every day and every minute. You know, so let's a couple of tips for me is, of course, I write down, like, what my one goal is for the day. Not, I have a to-do list, but I write down, here's the one thing I want to get done, whether it's a blog post, whether it is a chapter in a book, or, you know, connecting with somebody in particular. Like, I write one thing down all the time. And then I always visualize it. So sometimes it's like, you know, the cover of my future book. I have it sitting on my desk going, okay, that's what you're going for. You know, other times it's simply like, what's that goal going to get me, right? So the positive side of it. So I have a pin board that when I'm feeling like, what am I doing this all for? I go to my pin board and it's got the things that whatever that success or that goal is going to obtain is going to be in my life at that point, whether it's a vacation or peace of mind. I visualize it, right? So that's a huge part for me, is visualizing and seeing it.
So there's a book out there called Goals Gone Wild, which I thought was really interesting. And they actually identified some negative side effects associated with goal setting. I mean, one of them is not being able to perform at all, you know, just writing them down and throwing them away. But they also addressed an overly narrow focus. So this may be something to avoid, because if you have an overly narrow focus that neglects non-goal areas, they've noticed a rise, and this is a study, in unethical behavior, distorted risk preferences, and corrosion of organizational culture.
Ooh.
It also affects motivation. So, I mean, right there, like that right there would tell me, okay, like I don't want to be like, you know, say make 10 calls, you know, in the early morning hours from 8 to 10, otherwise you failed. So I think it needs to be more general, and maybe it's like setting more weekly goals and not too many of them, and making sure that they're achievable, right?
Well, I think, you know, I tend to, one of my best mentors gave me he just was so amazing, and he was like, you know, print your week out, like see what it looks like. If you don't want to print it out, it's fine. If you don't want to hurt paper. But he would basically take, here are my goals for the week, whether it's preparing for a meeting's coming up, I want to rock that meeting, and then he would look at it in tasks instead of goals. So completing a task versus achieving a goal, it feels different. It feels like little steps. So it's not like you have a huge goal to undertake. It's a small.
Check that stuff off, right?
Oh, love that. I mean, every conversation I've ever had, whether it's in person or on a string on Facebook, in a conversation like this, everybody is like, I love to check things off. So give yourself that win, because that is what propels you into the next checkbox and the big scratch off.
Well, you know, one thing I love too is, and I mean, maybe you could do it with tasks a little bit. I know our dear, dear friend Katie Lance is a mad woman when it comes to putting up stuff that needs to happen, and she does it with Post-it notes.
Yes, she does.
I've always been one of those people who felt I could keep most of it in my head, which I'm lying to myself. Like, let's be real, right? You have to keep it somewhere. Your mind is not always going to remind you, or it will remind you a day early before your appointment that you thought you missed yesterday, or vice versa. So the write it down aspect really seems key to it. How do you keep track of your goals and your tasks?
So one of the fun little tips when I talk about writing things down is, yes, I use Post-it notes. Yes, I put things in Evernote and in my calendar. But I also love my dry eraser markers, you know, that use on a whiteboard. But I don't have whiteboards all over my house. However, I do have mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And all of those things have notes and ideas and reminders and goals of things that I want to do during the day, because it's fun. It's a different way to look at them, and it reinvigorates me because I'm writing on the wall. You know what I mean? It also feels a little bit naughty writing on the window. You know?
I love it. Does it come off?
It does. You can use a little Windex with paper towel or one of those little dry eraser thingies. Totally works, and it's just, like I said, it feels a little naughty. It's in a totally different place, so I
love it.
Your mind.
You always see it. You're always in front of the mirror in the morning, so what better way to kind of help yourself visualize your day than writing down the things you want to happen, right?
Right. Well, and mantras, too. Like, I have scripture written down on my mirror that's reminding me, you know who you are, sister, like, go out there and go after it. And I also have, the words I use for my year, right? What are my words for the year? I have those written there. And so it's like my whiteboard is that little sliver of mirror over to the left that I never even go in front of. It's my words.
Got it.
How about you?
So we're at a point right now where, as I mentioned earlier, the year is not shiny and brand new. Well, it's still pretty brand new. It's just not glimmering like a diamond anymore. It doesn't have as many facets, but it has still as many opportunities. And we're in this kind of flux mode. This is a make or a break, because if we've if we've shuttered away our goals or we haven't looked at them because we've been too busy, then we kind of get sidetracked. What kind of recommendations or tips do you have for people right now that are in the middle of this, flux period?
You bet. Well, first of all, shame off you. I love to say that. Give yourself a little grace, and then set a flippin' deadline.
Love
Kelly,
it.
we were just talking about this when we were together in person about how, some people need a ton of pressure to get things done. Some people need a moderate amount, like I do, but you have to know what your pressure point is and actually set a deadline. Because in particular, when you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur working from home or working on the goal or mobily, it's like you really need that. This goal has got to be completed, by a specific date, because squishy deadlines don't work. We just kind of float past them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so squishy deadlines, like, how do we avoid those? What are some of the best ways to make sure that we're being held accountable? Because accountability is really critical.
Oh, you know what I always feel like when I'm getting stuck, or when I do feel that little bit of shame start, like guilt, like, oh my gosh, I haven't done that.
Yeah.
Immediately think, what I haven't done is created an accountability group. And here's the thing, you don't have to have one accountability coach. You can have multiple people keeping you accountable for different things. And part of the beauty of that is if you can find, 2 or 3 groups of people who are going towards the same thing you are, then it makes it easier and actually a little bit more fun to communicate, because it's kind of like, well, what are you up to? Here's what I'm doing. And you tap into, whether it's group competition or the individual competitive nature of individual entrepreneurs. And so that key of getting that accountability immediately, get a group. My gosh, you can start a Facebook group, start a hangout once a week where you meet via hangout, do a teleconference. It doesn't matter how, just do it. And you know what? Don't do it in person. Like, don't waste your time getting to a meeting. Like, you don't need to do that. Use that time to actually get the project done. Be accountable. Do it virtually. It does. Hello.
And I think too that, like, these accountability groups are great, but if they're not people who have some sort of buy-in or tie-in with you, then they may not be as consistent. And then another challenge on these accountability groups for goals in particular, take a sip of your wine, is that if the groups are too big, then they become unmanageable.
Right. That's such a good word.
Yeah. So keep them small and make sure people have some sort of they get something out of it as well. You're holding them accountable, so you can't kind of like start a group and then nobody pays attention to anybody, and then you're like, why is nobody helping me?
Absolutely. Well, and again, that's why it's super helpful if you have a common goal. So if you start an accountability group where everyone but one is trying to, get healthy,
yes.
And the one person who's like, the skinny, ordering a breve latte, is totally left out of the conversation, because she's not trying to do the same thing everyone else is. Maybe she's trying to gain weight, and oh my Lord, they have the same problem, but it's in a different light. And so you have to find people who have that commonality.
Yes.
Because then it's, again, that competitive edge. And I think all of us have a little bit of that, again, whether it's team-oriented or, the golfers out there who love to beat their own game. That's part of what sparks the soul, right? It's like, I need to get this done. I've opened up the little, what is that crazy guy who, like, runs through the streets and, like, opens his trench coat and, like, screams? He's in London or something crazy like that. I was reading about it last week, and I thought, like, that guy is crazy. He is somebody who's like, my goal is to shock
Inspector Clouseau, is it?
Oh, I hope not, because he's probably old now. But his goal in doing that is shocking the world. Like, he's doing that for the shock factor. He's probably not going to find an accountability group, though. Just saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think too, like, the timeliness of getting these things in place are really critical to supporting you. So if somebody's Like if we're sitting out there right now, we're going, oh my God, like I'm not where I want to be. I need to reset, and I may even need to restart. What kind of tips do you have for people like that?
Wow. You know, I read an interesting quote today that was if you ask for money, you'll get advice. If you ask for advice, you'll get money. And I think
I'm
this
going to start asking for advice.
But you can kind of, if you just let that settle in a little bit, it makes absolute sense. And so I think that if you the end game of a goal, right, is to get you somewhere where you're probably making money, right? You're doing something that's getting you closer to being more productive or successful. So think about that. So slow down and ask for the help. Ask for the advice, and then hush. Like if you want an accountability partner or you want to talk to a mentor, tell them what's on your mind and then zip it and listen. Because
absolutely.
oh, hello. They don't want to be your therapist. They want to be your advisor.
Without a doubt. I want to ask them too, like, go back and look at your goals. Did you set too specific of goals? Is the focus too narrow? Are the goals realistic? Do you have ownership in the goals? You know, did somebody else set these to you and say, here's what you need to do this year? Because if you help to establish the goals, you have a better chance of helping achieve them because you have buy-in. So, so those are a couple of things that I would add to that too, and I hope we're sipping along.
Yes. And you know, one of the other fun things that I have is I have a sanity partner.
Ooh.
So not somebody who, well, it's you. Hello.
That doesn't include insane people, I guess.
It's the person that you don't always need advice. And so similar to what I just said about when you're talking to your mentor, tell them what's going on and get their advice. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen. Yeah. And to bring you back to sanity side. And that's okay, but it really shouldn't be the same person every single time. Okay, you know, you want to break it up for them. So again, like you aren't their therapist, or they're not your therapist, excuse me, and vice versa, right? Yeah. You really want to make sure that you are keeping yourself sane, they're sane, everyone's on the same page, moving towards the same simple, defined goals that you've all stated were your goals.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, this is wrap time, so I want to ask, are there one or two things, you know, I saw something about a Pinterest, about putting goals on Pinterest. How does that work?
So there's two ways you can use Pinterest for goals. One is to actually visualize your goals. So again, if starting a blog is a goal, then create I'm starting my blog pin board, and that has articles and things that are going to get you closer to making that goal happen. Same with writing a book. If you want to read more, if one of your goals is to read more, then create a pin board that has the books that you want to read. So you can visualize the goal. The other side is that, like in the 80s, remember that justification for higher education poster that was everywhere, and it was like this huge mansion and a big pool and like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and vets inside the garage. I mean, it was ludicrous, right? But the same thing. Look at how do you define what happens on the other side of those goals being met? Is it you're sending your kids to college? Is it you're going on vacation? Is it you're going to finally get the car that you wanted, or you're going on a $5,000 shopping spree? Whatever it is, visualize it so that you also can say, this is what I'm going for. And remember, it doesn't always have to be about money. It can be about a feeling. So some of those can be just quotes like, I will feel successful when I've completed this, and then explain to yourself why. The healthy option. If I drink more water, I know I'm going to be more successful because I'll be of clearer mind, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So everybody, dust off your goals, and if you're actively pursuing them, we are so proud of you. But continue and make sure that you create allegiances and alliances that support a common goal, which is to achieve what your goals are. Is that 3 in 1 sentence? Yes. Um, and that's a wrap for this episode. Join us in our next episode when we tackle the extraordinary journey and subject of a woman on an adventure for love with Crystal Tingle of Love Jump. It's her story, her very personal story of a journey to find a soulmate. It's super exciting. So thank you, Debra. This has been amazing as always. I can't wait until our next episode. I'm so excited. And to all of you, thanks for listening to Breve TV Uncorked. To our fans, go bold, women on wine. Subscribe to brevetv.com so you won't miss the rich goodness of information for your entrepreneurial lifestyle. I'm Kelly Mitchell for Debra Trapin and Breve TV Uncorked, signing off. Take care.
Cheers. The goals alive.
What? TTFN.